to the place where we learn about improv. Cause public speaking can take you so far. Improbly speaking, say yes and flex your creative thinking. Improbly speaking, say yes and flex your creative thinking.
Welcome, everyone, to the Improvly Speaking podcast. I'm your host, Dayna Gowan. So excited to be here today, that you're here today. And we are going to have so much fun today because our guest is very fun and she is all about play. Yes, even as adults, we can, and I don't say this very often, but we should play. We can and we should infuse play into our lives. And our guest, Rona, today is going to tell us how we can do that and talk all about play. And I'm so excited. If you are joining for the first time, I'll give you a rundown of the goals of this podcast. One, to help you understand the benefits of improvisation and applied improvisation and also play now. 2, to demonstrate how improv shows up in all aspects of our lives. And 3, to inspire you to try new things, get out of your head and judgment zone, and find creative outlets and passions that can help you. And our special guest today is Rona Lewis. And let me tell you all about Rona. Rona is based in Redondo Beach, California. She is a leadership and communication coach, a keynote speaker, and an experiential learning facilitator. Rona is a champion of the inner child, and I love that. Yes, we are flexing. We are champions of the inner child. I love it. She calls herself a play instigator because she loves helping corporations and leaders improve their culture for employees. She is also the co-founder and CEO of Playful Mind Project, and a leading expert in purposeful and attuned play for improving engagement and motivation. And maybe we'll get to what attuned play and purposeful play means. She is the author of the book Play and Profit: How Purposeful Play Leads to Organizational Success. She is showing it on the screen.
I am.
So
it's right here.
if you're listening to this, go watch the YouTube of this and you'll see the cover of the book. And the book just came out in March 2025, and so I'm really excited to chat more about this. Rona helps teams and leaders ditch the burnout, boost communication, and ignite innovation without, and this is key, without boring PowerPoints or stiff corporate jargon. Yuck. Bonus fun fact, she is also the co-host of Biz Souls, the business podcast with edge, soul, and just enough snark to keep things real. And they have 187 episodes out already and still going strong, her and Jeffrey. And give it a listen. It's fantastic and wonderful. So without further ado, we need to jump into this. Please welcome my super fun and super playful friend, Rona Lewis. Welcome, Rona.
I didn't even realize I do all that stuff. I'm like, wow, I'm more impressive than I thought.
Wow, she sounds great. Where is she? She's right there.
I look good on paper.
And on video, too. You look great, my friend.
Well, good answer. I'll give you money. All right.
Rona, I'm so excited that we're finally doing this. We were supposed to record.
We've been talking about it for what, 2 years?
I think so. And when we were supposed to record, I had COVID, but I actually think I was pregnant. Like I had just become pregnant and I was really sick. And I was like, it's COVID. And so it's like, let's reschedule. And then I was pregnant and just going through the whole pregnancy journey. And you're right. It has been, that was like 2 years ago. So I'm glad we're here. And it will be a different episode now that we're recording now versus 2 years ago, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And for our friends listening, Rona and I met through the Applied Improv Network, which has a fantastic open space program. And that's how we met. Rona joined on the same Friday that I happened to join. And I think, Rona, you just posted in the chat or something. You said you were in the LA area. And I was like, oh, me too at the time. And I reached out and we happened to live like less than a mile away at that point, and we
Yeah,
got lunch and stayed
it went from
connected.
there. Yeah.
And yeah, the rest is history. I love it.
Well, I think that's the great thing about people who are involved in improv and in play. And it's not that we're all like stupidly outgoing, is that we have this in common, and we're like a family in that in a sense that where we have the same philosophy about work, about life, and so we just connect on a whole other level.
Yeah, I love that phrase. We're not just stupidly outgoing. We can be,
We
but we're
can.
not all the time. We do take some time to relax and recharge
Well, yes,
sometimes.
it's not toxic positivity because we all feel our feels. It's just having that optimism and resilience that the play philosophy gives you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Rona, I know we've talked about this, but I would love for you to just go into it and share with our friends listening. Tell us all about your improv journey and how you got started in it. And how did it lead to being a quote unquote play
A
instigator?
playing instigator. Well, I was not one of these people who got out of college and went into a job and been working there for, a bunch of years. I had a few different careers, one of which was acting. And as part of acting, you take improv to prepare you for anything, as well as Toastmasters. Once I got into corporate, I took Toastmasters as a way to become a better speaker and a better manager. I was in advertising sales, media sales. And then after I left media sales, which by the way, sales is improv.
Correct. Yeah.
It's every day you have to think on your feet. So those exercises and things that I learned when I did acting and that helped me not only in sales, also in speaking. I had a female, which really bummed me out. I had a female boss when I was in advertising sales who I thought, great, we women have to stick together. She'll have my back. Boy, was I wrong. She
Oh,
had come
no.
on sometime after I left, and she wanted her own people there. So long story short, which I'm not doing such a good job, but so I left the business and I went into another passion of mine, which is health and fitness. I was in and out of that business for like 15 years, and I started doing corporate work. I had some personal training clients who were into corporate, and so they started bringing me in. And one of the things that I saw was that it wasn't just about their physical health, it was their mental health. One of the companies that I worked with does movie trailers. And you walk
Hmm.
into their office, there are bowls of movie candy, and everything on the walls is all about it's a super fun atmosphere, and all you saw was stressed out people. I understood it partly because when you're doing movie trailers, there's a timeline. You have to get it through, you have to get it out there because the movie's coming out on a certain date. These people didn't know how to handle stress, and they didn't realize it was like they didn't realize what a fun business they were in. And I'm like, there is something missing. So I took a step back and I went back to school. I took classes on creativity. I learned about play. Dr. Gwen Gordon is one of my mentors, and she studied the psychology of play. So I took courses there, and there,
What?
Yale has a class in happiness. So I did all these things. Read Csikszentmihalyi book. He's got seminal books on flow. Dr. Stuart Brown's book on play. So all of those
Mhm.
things got me to see things a little bit differently. And I was like, you know what? Trainers are a dime a dozen, basically. Who's doing
Mhm.
this? And I started adding that into my programs. And my original company was called Playmore Corporate Wellbeing. And
Oh,
so
okay.
I had that for a while and I incorporated everything. And then when the pandemic hit, I lost basically all of my business because everything was in person. And because of this,
Mhm.
I'm with a play mastermind called Play and Ponder, which I've spoken to you about. We're going to get you in there
Yeah.
too, because you're
Love
one of
that.
us. And I met this woman, Jessica. She was a professional improver down in San Diego. That's how she knows Gary Ware.
Oh,
And
nice.
So she and I, through some shenanigans that went on with somebody else, decided to start Playful Mind Project. And so we had some success online, and that's when I realized that we are instigating play for people. So that's where I got my name from. That's
Ah,
where my tag. And I actually
love
had to
it.
buy her out because she had just had a baby. And
Mhm.
because you did too, you know exactly what it's like. And during the pandemic, she couldn't have any help.
Right.
So she's still on the quote unquote board of directors. And I give her work whenever I can. She's up in Seattle, and she's an unbelievable improviser, and she does laughter yoga, stuff like that. So
Oh, fun.
that's how that started. And then I got called in from HR groups, and I started speaking professionally, and companies started bringing me in to facilitate programs, and puff, here I am.
Poof, here you are.
Yeah,
And of course, it all sounds very linear when we backtrack, but
right.
anything but linear, very,
Exactly.
jagged, zigzag, backtracking kind of path. But you make it sound fun. You put you say it
It
with a
was not
smile,
fun
and I'm
when I
sure.
lost all my business. No, that was not fun.
Correct.
But,
Right. I know.
that happens to a lot of people. And yes, because it really changed my whole outlook. And, because we are, as a species, we're really hardwired for negativity. And
Mm.
when we practice elements of play, it's not just a thing to do, it's a mindset. You learn how to find or make lemonade from lemons, to use a incredibly overused saying. And, it's about resilience, bouncing back from stuff.
Right. Okay. So is that how you kind of spin it? Because, you're like, oh, I'm doing all these talks on play. And I mean, we've all been in the corporate world. I just left the corporate world. The corporate world is very serious and they view play as like a frivolous thing, especially when you should be working
Yeah.
8 hours a day or more and be very productive. So, how do you quote unquote sell this idea of play and creative play to companies?
Well, it's, when I go in and give my talks, I actually get a lot of people coming to me and say, I would love to talk to you about programs, because I work with things that are their hot buttons. One of my, I guess, hip pocket talks is about psychological safety. And
Mhm.
psychological safety is a basis for really how work gets done, in the sense that if we don't trust each other, and if we're not vulnerable and being mostly authentic, we don't have to bring our total, authentic self to work, because that doesn't always help. And we have to be transparent and all of that. When you look at that through a lens of play, I bring it to them that way. So everything that I cover, change management, all the things that business is going through, I do it through the lens of play. So it's not just I go in and I talk about purposeful play. Yes, I do that. And we do what I call playtivities. It's a combination of exercises,
Love that.
activities, games. I don't call everything games, because games always connote winners and losers. You don't always want that. Sometimes you need, for better team engagement, you want an activity that helps with transparency and vulnerability. Whereas, and I think games are amazing, and there are companies that specialize specifically in games for bringing teams together, and they're fabulous. And I think that they definitely have their place. And improv is a great way to bring people in, so that's one of the things I use. We use featuring failure, and yes, and a lot of the tenets of improv to get people to understand what purposeful and attuned play are. And I will explain to you a little bit how that, there's a bunch of different, in my book, there's a little chapter on all the different elements of play. And yeah, let me find the pages, because there's a lot in here, so I haven't memorized it. So, I talk about what original play is, and solitary play, and informal social play. I even talk about improv play, playing with
Ah,
words and actions by being in the moment and listening. That's what you have to do. I talk a lot about active listening and the fact that everyone is terrible at it at work. And you have to be present and listen to what the other person says in improv, because we're so busy thinking about what we want to say that we miss half of what the other person is saying. You can't do that in improv. So that, these are all the ways that I bring in play. And purposeful play is, there's a method to the madness. There's a reason for the riot. It's, playing certain playtivities, games, activities for a certain reason at a certain time for a certain purpose. Now, when you go to the attuning part, that's based in psychology and attachment theory. When you attune to another person, you meet them where they are psychologically. It's impossible to really attune to everyone in a room if you have a bunch of people, because everyone has a different experience. Everyone's in a different mood. We have different life experiences. And what it will help you do is be present and notice, helps you read the room. And then you can focus on one person who, if you can read body language, which actually Jeffrey, who's my podcast partner, is an expert on. He's taught me. I am really good. He's really good. He's amazing. And, so you can see the little things. And there are things that everybody can see, like the leaning back with the arms folded and just doing other things, looking on their phone. And you have to get them back. And so there are things you can do that will allow them to enjoy the moment without that, forced fun, which is, the oxymoron of a lifetime.
God,
Which is that, that's, it's when a manager who's trying to work on getting everybody engaged will say, come on, we're all going to karaoke and we're going to have beers. Great.
We're all going to do trust falls.
Oh, horrifying. And that just,
I don't think that's a thing anymore. Trust falls.
If anyone ever invites me to do karaoke, I will hate you. So yeah, I not my thing.
Not your thing? No.
Yeah, and there,
Even as an improviser.
Yeah, you really don't want to hear me sing. And there, and there are ways to get people. If you want to invite people to do things, you give them a choice. And if people really don't want to do it, you can get them to help keep score or work with the arrangements or, give them something. It's like the kids who are shy or don't want to make a fool of themselves because they think everyone is judging them because they're in their adult minds. It allows them to kind of just dip their toe in, and then you see all the other kids playing and then they're like, all right, I'll try. Things like that are really important.
That was one of my things when I first started. I was always worried, like, oh, how do you engage the people in the back of the room, with the body language, leaning back, arms folded, kind of, I won't say too cool for school, but yeah, just like, oh, this isn't my thing and I'm forced to be here and I hate it. And I mean, you just said it, you kind of bring them in how they want to join. So
Right.
what I always say is in the group agreements part in the beginning, I say, you are always welcome to sit out and observe. And all that I ask is that you don't get on your phone. It's not a time to check out. It's a time to observe. And you can actually learn a lot by observing people and what they're doing and how they're enjoying it or how they're leaning into the exercise. So yes, you can step out, but you can't check out.
Yeah. Yeah. I was in Philadelphia this past week working with a large organization that I will not mention. And they were basically voluntold to come and work with me. And it turned out great because I led with that. Look, I know you guys were voluntold to be here. Trust me, I am going to make this incredibly entertaining and you guys are going to have a good time. So it let them know that I knew where they were coming from. So that made a lot of them kind of sit up, and then you kind of have to lead them into easy things before you get things that are just, off the wall. I'm not going to have them stand up and do a little dance the first thing, because these guys are not going to do that.
Right.
And I got them involved in even a little thing where they had to make up stories. I did Story Spine by the end and they loved it.
Yeah. I love Story
And
Spine.
it's a great way to warm them up. And, or I should say, there are ways to warm people up. So it just kind of cracks the door and they're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. All right, I'll take the next step. That's why people hire us.
Right? I know. Well, it's hard, but I get it. I do get it. Like, these are very serious jobs, and obviously we don't want our accountants or surgeons or doctors or banker or anybody really to be a, clown or comedian all the time, right? And that's not what play is either, of being a clown or comedian. But like, we want them to take their role and their job seriously. There are rules, processes, procedures, systems to follow. And we are not saying to do away with all that, but the play and the creativity that comes up in this 1 hour session or half day training, whatever you're doing, creates so much room for innovation and a different mindset, like you were saying, that it adds layers to their job and it can help in the long run. But I know, short term, it's like, oh, forced fun activity, bah humbug, right?
Well, I'm going to give you one of my activities that I used to start with, and I'm actually using it. I have a keynote in December. It's a keynote slash, well, all my keynotes are interactive,
Yeah.
but it's really more of a workshop and it's a keynote.
Nice.
And it's with a bunch of doctors and executives. And I
Mhm.
talk about with play, people, especially in business, people work with two different sides of their brain. There's the adult mind and the childlike mind or beginner's mindset. And notice I say childlike, not childish, although
Mm.
that can happen sometimes. It's
Good
a beginner's
distinction.
mindset. And, we talk about what that is. And then I ask, okay, how many people think that they know how to play and that they are in their child mind, that they're in that open mindset? Normally, 2/3 of the people raise their hand. Great. We're going to test that. And I have blank paper and pencils on the desk, and everybody takes one, and I pair them up, and I give them 30 seconds to draw a portrait of their partner.
Oh, nice.
Virtually every time. I'm sorry, this is terrible. I'm not a good artist. You get the nervous laughter. And then
Mhm.
I ask afterwards, how many people heard that? That is their adult mind. And it stops people from enjoying the moment, just having fun, allowing things to happen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're gobsmacked. So that's a great one to do if you have people who think they have it in the bag. Oh, this is easy. Not so much.
Do you have them redraw again later
No,
once they're
no.
no?
I bring them on to other things because it's a realization, and then we do a debrief about it and what made them uncomfortable. I have them work their minds in a different way. I have an exercise that I got from one of my play people, designing a planet, and I get
Ooh.
things like that, and we do a bunch of improv things and listen, how to do active listening, and it depends on what the subject is. So those are just some of the things. I'm not giving away all of my secrets.
Oh my gosh, no,
And
and I'm not asking you to,
I
trust
actually
me.
do have a lot more in here. I actually think design a planet is in this one, and I have a love-hate relationship for the books that just have exercises and things like that, HR
Yeah.
people will, I call it game spaghetti. They'll look through these books and say, "Oh, look, this is one on team communication, and so is this one." And they just throw a bunch of things against the wall hoping that something will stick, and they don't do enough research, or they don't really look and see what the issues are. And a lot of times they have unconscious bias
Mhm.
because they work there. They're not really aware of the culture because they live it every day. That's one of the benefits of having a consultant like you, like me, come in, because we are objective. We can see things. It's like coming into someone's house who doesn't see all the dust bunnies because they live with them every day. We can see dust bunnies. Not that we judge, we know how it's like because we have our own dust bunnies.
If you came into my house right now, we still have boxes and we've moved
I'm
it
sure,
over
yeah.
3 months ago, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we still have boxes," and it anyway, yep. So, I feel the dust bunnies and boxes thing, but, you and I experienced this firsthand too. I had a group that was interested and I was going on maternity leave, and I introduced them to you, and I was like, "Rona's great, let her lead the session," and they ended up doing it internally. Someone internally led the session. And I think that happens a lot. And of course, every organization has the means to make that decision. But it does help to have an external consultant or speaker come in because if you don't exude this like playful mindset or this energy, and then all of a sudden you're asking people to have forced fun and do these activities, they're like, who is like, why are you
Right,
making us do this? But if you have someone external come in who has done the research and knows how to set it up appropriately where everyone feels safe to participate or not participate, right? It makes a world of difference.
right.
And we are worth our money in gold,
No
when
kidding, yeah, and many times these internal people, look, they have the best of intentions, they wanna save a
of
penny here and there.
course.
Per your point, they don't know how to do warm-ups, they certainly don't know how to debrief in the right way to
Mhm.
point out what they've learned or feature failure or, it's okay that they no, you call them on it and ask them what happened, and a lot of times fear gets in the way, and there's, there's everything from imposter syndrome to the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is the exact opposite, and they
Mhm.
don't always know how to handle it, and so there's a lot more than we have time for to talk about on this podcast. Just hire consultants that trust me, it's worth the money.
Of course, yes. And specifically us two consultants because
Well,
we're awesome and super
yes,
fun.
and
And
we can go anywhere in the country. She has a husband to watch her kid, so
right, exactly. I love that. Rona, you kind of mentioned it, like the types of play. So there's original play, solitary play, informed social. I mean, you talk about it in your book more,
uh-huh,
but I follow a lot of playful people on
yeah,
LinkedIn. And so there's like play and creative play, and then applied improv and improv. And I guess my basic understanding is that play is the umbrella, the large
yeah,
umbrella that then like improv falls under because improv is a form of play.
exactly.
And I know there's different nuanced versions and obviously different types, and I didn't know there were different types of play. So, I don't know, can you expand on that? Play
Okay.
versus creative play?
Well, play in itself is there's so many definitions of it. I think a good just overall play is exploration without fear.
Oh, I like
And
that. I like that a
it's
lot.
it's curiosity in motion. And curiosity is basically, critical thinking skills and not judging, being in the present moment. It's going in with a sense of adventure. When we talk about creative play, it you add a little structure. So it's when you're exploring possibilities with an end result in mind, with a purpose, or when you're looking for an insight or a solution, so all those things. Or you just want it's I'm playing creatively when I'm in the kitchen. I went to cooking school and I call myself a some and lots cook. Some of this, lots of that. And because you don't have to go to cooking school to be able to do this. I'm great at opening the refrigerator and say, "Oh, these two things are going to work together and let's try adding this. Let's see what happens." And that's what creative play is. So, yeah.
I love
And then,
that.
improv, I think it's the basis of all creativity because you're very present, you're being creative. You can't, you're not forming anything in your mind. You really have to listen. And it teaches your brain how to stay open so the downloads come quicker. You don't have a preconceived notion. There's no assumption of what's going to happen because you don't know. You have much more chance of that adaptability and that yes and emotional attunement that you have allows for, anything. And when you're doing that, that's play.
I love that. I love those definitions of Exploration without fear. I'm taking copious notes too. I'm like,
Have
if you
at
see
it.
me
Well,
looking
luckily,
down, I'm
we'll
like,
be recorded. So yeah, we are recording. You can for all you people out there, you can listen to this 5 or 6 times and make sure you get it right.
hopefully not when you're falling asleep, but
Yeah.
any other time, right? Curiosity in motion, it's adventure. I love that. And I mean, I have a 1-year-old and she is very playful. And
Right.
as a parent, I find myself sometimes being like, that's not how that works. And I'm like, wait a second.
Right.
It's okay as long as
That's
she's
your
not
adult
hurting
mind
herself.
coming in. Yeah. Don't
Yeah.
always draw or color in the lines.
Exactly, right? And so I usually take a step back and I'm like, "You can do it that way and let's try it, let's go for it."
Yeah.
And it's hard to let go of your adult mind, especially, I can recognize and I'm aware of it, but I mean, for some people who are in these higher positions and or not higher positions, but in these cultures where you have to they think they have to be in their adult mind, it's really hard to step
It
away
is.
from it.
It is. And when I talk about what I do, what we do, I usually connect it to Western culture.
Mhm.
Western Europe, Canada, the United States, because Asian culture, South American, culture, I'm just not that familiar with it to know how to work it well. And if they even understand the concept of, because I know that, the Japanese have, when the men get done working, they'll go out and do the karaoke and they drink to the point of, throwing up. It's okay. You could probably even that out a bit as and I do not get that. So that's where my wheelhouse stops. And with that, I take a little, yeah, I got nothing for that.
Right. Well, so you mentioned, like, for you doing, like, a form of play, you probably don't even think of it as play, but you have your own mini version of Chopped at home. Like, you go in the fridge
Yeah,
and you're like, "Oh, these 2 things, and then these 2 and then how can I make this work?" And now you're playing Chopped with yourself, but it's
here.
great, and it's kinda fun to see what comes out of that, and discovery. I love the term and the word discovery. It's one of my favorite words. And so what are some tips that you give people to infuse play into their lives? Like simple kind of tips for infusing play.
First of all, find out what you love to do. That's a great form of play. Do you like to play tennis? Do you like to knit? Hobbies are play. And what is not really play is just sitting in front of the television and zoning out. Now,
Mhm.
understand, I love TV. I was an actor for a short time. I got my SAG card, did a couple of things. And, like I said, that's how I started improv classes and got more into it. And it's maybe trying new things. Take
Mhm.
a class in art or baking bread or, something, keep that curiosity. Ask questions. I love one of
Mhm.
my things that I love to do when I go out and play. I love art. I was an art major my first 2 years in college. So I love going to art shows and, I'll go with people. I like going by myself because I ask a million questions. So is this acrylic or oil? What was your process? How come you chose these colors? Why'd you make it this big? And I'm sure they're like, shut up. It's find your playground.
Ooh, that's
And
perfect.
and go out and play. What's your sandbox? And it's amazing. This one time in band camp, sorry, American Pie movies. Jeffrey
I
and I were going out. We record at his house down in Huntington Beach. So we were just talking about stuff and we were out for a walk on the beach. And all of a sudden, we come across these kids who were like building and stuff in the sand. And I was like, hey, what are you making? Oh, we're making a castle. You want to play with us? Yes. Yes, I do.
of course I do, right.
If someone invites you to do something, say yes. Learn something new. If you're scared, do it anyway.
Yeah.
That's where people we get into this circle of comfort and that do it anyway is a risk. And if you can take a step out of your circle and take the risk and learn stuff and be curious, then your circle just got bigger. And it makes life more
Yep.
fun.
Yep. When someone asks you, "Hey, do you want to play?" Or it can come in the form of, "Hey, you want to go hit some golf balls?" Or you want to go do a round of golf. And golf is on mine because I literally just had a friend ask me to play. And at first I wanted to be like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't played. I'm not a great golfer in general, but like
Me
I
neither.
haven't
Jeffrey and I play,
hit
and
any."
neither one of us are good. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is really fun when you
It
go
is.
out there and play. And so I had to take a step back and be like, say yes to this offer. Say yes to this offer because I want to, but then I was scared to, and it's kind of recognizing don't let fear get in this way. Now, if it's a boundary and it's flaring up, that's the distinction. If it's a boundary and you're like, this is a no, I'm not feeling this. But if
Right.
it's fear based, that's when you say yes. That's what
Yeah.
I tell
Don't be
people at
afraid of
least.
losing golf balls. That's that kind of stuff. Really?
I am afraid of hitting people's windshields or like hitting people
Right.
on the
I
course
get
and
that.
stuff.
That's where we are. We used to play every weekend when I would go down to record. And I think it's been like 2 or 2.5 years since we played. And he's like, we got to pick it up again. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I
you're like,
will. I will.
yeah, it's not as a big a priority, but Rona, I mean, you have done so much just from this interview. You've mentioned you've gone to cooking school, you've done health and fitness, you've studied play and leadership skills, you've done sales, you've done so much. Now, I'm curious to hear about your public speaking experience, and you're a great public speaker.
Thank you.
Seems like
Yeah.
you love doing it. Have you always loved public speaking, or did you have to learn to love
Yeah,
it?
I sort of. I've always been a bit of a ham. I'm the youngest of 3 kids. I have 2 older brothers. So I'm the youngest and the
Nice.
only girl. My brothers are 6 and 8 years older than I am. So it was always about me, "Isn't she cute?"
Mhm.
And I was a really cute little kid. My mom didn't think I'd be over 5 feet tall because I was always really little and, I was like a toy for my brother. So I was used to the limelight, and I was always in plays in elementary school and in junior high school, and, I never did, like, debate club. I just always knew I liked being on stage. I was actually
Mhm.
gonna be a theater major in college, and my Jewish mother, who was afraid that, "You can't do that. You're not a dancer, and you're not really a singer, and, there'd be too much competition." So I was like, "All right." They were paying for my college education. What else can
Mhm.
that we So that's when I was an art major, and then I realized that I could still be creative going into advertising, copywriting and laying stuff out. So that's what I did. And it was, that was another form of play. And I was, pitching in advertising. That's in sales, is speaking and all that. And then, it just started once I got first into fitness and then into what I do now. I started getting asked uh, to do programs and things like that. And I also work with an organization. I'm on the faculty of an organization called American Management Association. They
Oh,
provide
cool.
multi-day seminars, webinars on communication. I do most of their communication and leadership subjects, how to talk to each other. I do their professional speaking one. And I'm a bit of a rebel. I Rona eyes every single one and I put in play. And if anybody from AMA hears me, I don't care because a lot of, and I've done instructional design. So I know how to put together these programs, and some of the ones that AMA had, I'm like, you know what? I have a better one that will give you the same skill and is more fun, which is
Mhm.
the basis of purposeful play. And well, basically any kind of play that helps in business, just implied improv. You learn a skill that's good for work in a low stakes environment. So if you mess up,
Mhm.
you're featuring failure. It becomes a learning moment as opposed to an, oh crap, I messed it up.
Mhm.
And it
And I'm
makes
afraid
it
to
go
tell
forward.
anybody about it, and the mistake is gonna compound and get worse, but I'm too afraid to tell people and show accountability. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's a scary culture that I work in, and it is not nice to people who make mistakes.
Exactly. You get thrown under the bus, you get judged, and yada,
Mhm.
yada, yada. So, yeah.
Mhm. Exactly. Rona, I want to take a quick break. I've got a few more questions for you, things to jump
Absolutely.
into. I want to hear more about the book too. So let's take a quick break and then we'll be right back. And we're back with Rona Lewis talking about all things play and creative play and attuned play. And Rona, I love your creative spirit, your playful energy. I think every time we talk, whether it's like text or phone call
Mm.
or in person, which is rare now, but
Well, now, yeah.
I always leave with a smile on my face. And this whole conversation, I've had a smile, just like laughing and enjoying this conversation. So I am just enjoying this immensely. And I
Our
hope, and
job
I
here
know
is
everyone
done.
else
Yes,
is.
good.
Yeah. I want to ask you about your book a little bit more because I know writing a book is a lot and it
It's a
takes
lot.
a long time and it takes a lot of patience and perseverance and discipline and all the things. And, but you're writing a book about play. So you have to have a creative and playful spirit about it. So,
Yeah.
what was that experience like? The writing process, which can seem very daunting and time consuming versus, the play. So, did you infuse play while writing?
Well, yes and no, in the sense that I wasn't just sitting there saying, "Okay, I'm gonna do a warm up and, create I'm gonna write with my other hand."
Right.
It's a collection of snippets and ideas and programs and talks that I have done over the past, X number of years that I felt helped play become solid in people's minds who don't understand it or are a little nervous about it. I have a talk that I want to do. I mean, I'd love to do this as a TED talk, and it's called Play is Not a Four-Letter Word,
Oh, what is it?
and huh? Yeah.
Play is not a four-letter word. What is it then?
No, it is a four-letter word, but it's
Oh, I'm sorry.
like a curse. Really? Phew. All right, I got to work on that. It was a little. That went straight over
I messed
your
that
head.
one. Don't have me in your audience. What is it then?
No one understand. Yeah. So it's,
Sorry.
and then that's okay. I talk about what you have mom brain. You're allowed. So I talk
Definitely.
about, I'm looking at my chapters, I how this started, my career started. I give a little background, what play is. We go into the different play types. There's different play personalities. And some of this I got from Dr. Stuart Brown, who is like the end all be all doctor. Dr. Brown really brought play into the modern age with his
Mhm.
seminal book on play. We talk about science because play is, in fact, science backed. There's a lot of psychology that goes into it.
Mhm.
And then how it works in all different versions at work. And then working on a culture. I give a bunch of, exercises, games, things like that. We talk about stress reduction, creativity, adaptability, employee engagement, all these things. Taking customer experience and sales. I mean, I go through everything that I could possibly think of that had to do with work. And I have it's not 5 stages, but it's I guess they are stages and they're, for lack of a better word, but it's and see, every time I use the word but, I change it to and because I go by the yes and philosophy.
I do that too. Just kind of like that mindset piece, right?
Yeah. So it's 5 stages. PLAY exclamation point. P is for
Mm.
psychological safety, which is like I said at the beginning, is one of the most important things we need to get anything done at an organization, because if you don't have trust, you won't communicate well or get things done well, et cetera, et cetera. L is listening skills, which we need to really hear what's going on. It's just, only 7% of our communication is verbal, everything else is body language. So that really entails both. A is attuning to the other person, meeting them where they are,
Mhm.
or, people as best you can. Y is the yes and, being able to
Nice.
hear them and adding to it. And then the exclamation point is the celebration, the mic drop. How do we end this? How do we make this fantastic? And then it starts all over again.
I love that exclamation point at the end, the celebration piece. And to play and profit. And I mean, we've talked about it, but how does play and profit fit in the same sentence?
Because when you have a mindset of play and your organization has that mindset, first of all, you have psychological safety. And,
Mhm.
Amy Edmondson, Harvard Business School professor of leadership and who is a champion of psychological safety, makes the great point that it's about the team. It's about the culture, the organization, the company, and feeling safe enough to dissent, to disagree without worrying about being thrown under the bus, getting kicked out, or, uh, getting judged overall. And
Mm.
not about holding hands and singing kumbaya. It's about feeling safe enough to not agree and knowing that your people have your back. You cannot
Mhm.
play unless you have that security with the rest of your people. And once you have that, then your people went through all of these stages, and that mindset of purposeful play and being open to do things in different ways and being curious. How can we do this better? Asking questions, looking at things upside down, being open to new ways of doing it and not just my way or the highway, allows organizations to innovate better so they can stay relevant and make it easier to profit because they will stay ahead of the game.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Woo!
Who doesn't want that?
Amen. Right, I know. Who doesn't want that?
Exactly.
Well, so Rona, getting a little personal here. I loved the quote. I wrote it down. Find your playground. What's your playground? So, what are you kind of dabbling in or trying new, getting into hobbies these days? What's your hobby of choice? It's not golf. We talked about it's not
No,
golf.
it isn't golf, and I actually used to play a lot of tennis, and just because of my schedule. So, I was an art major, and I used to have a side business when I was married and living in Florida. My best friend in Florida and I had a business where we would paint glassware, tableware, and even furniture. Kind of, there's a brand name Mackenzie Child, and these really fun things, and we would sell them to boutiques. And I had given that up for quite a few years after I moved, and it's so gratifying. And you use the other side of your brain, and how can I do this differently? And it's fun. What color should I use? And how can I do this? So I recently took that up again, and it's just I make
Oh,
things, and I just painted some frames, and I'm doing a tissue box for me to match my room, and it's just fun stuff for me to be childlike and play with paints and things like that. And I play sports whenever I can. Actually, just the other day, one of my really close friends here, she said, my daughter is on the wrestling team. We never had wrestling when I
wow.
was in high school. So she said, "Would you come with me? Because I need someone's hand to hold." I'm like, "So hold your husband." And she's like, "No, he needs to coach it. So he's up there coaching her." So I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna go." I never did.
Yeah.
I went to high school wrestling matches when I was in high school. And I dated a wrestler when I was in college, but not since then. It's a very long time. So, I
Mhm.
went and we had a great time. And, unfortunately, I don't have kids. So I got to, just play with rooting for, somebody on a high school team and watching it. It just brought back a lot of memories. It was super fun. So I'm saying yes to different things.
I love that. Saying yes to opportunities and offers. I call them offers.
Yeah.
Anything that comes up that is like, "Oh, that's interesting. I'm intrigued by that." Like, "Let's do it." Yeah, I always try to have that kinda "let's do it" mindset. It's harder now. I appreciate you sharing all those hobbies, and it's never too late or whatever excuse we put onto that, it's never too late to get into something new and enjoy it
Right.
for the sake of enjoyment.
Look at all the adult education classes that are out there. They would be out of
Mhm.
business if, there are, I guess I think they're called lifelong learners. There's just, I have a friend who's in his 60s and he's going for his master's. Why not?
Yeah, why not, right? And that's amazing. It keeps
We're
your
living
brain going. It
into our
keeps
our, our
you
90s now. So why not?
yeah, it keeps you young at heart and mind and body, like, it really does
Yeah.
keep you young.
Keeps your brain active.
I love that. Rona, what's next on your journey? And I'll add, I have seen you post about Dancing Dragons Collective, which is also a fun, playful name. So
It is. Yeah.
even with that
It's called Dancing Dragons Coaching Collective, dancingdragons.cc, which I thought was very appropriate. And what it's a
Very playful.
platform that we have close to 300 coaches of all different kinds, everything from fitness coaches. Can I say that again? Fitness coaches to relationship coaches and executive coaches, mindset coaches. I coach people who want to speak better and learn to communicate better and things like that. And I actually found them on LinkedIn. They were advertising for coaches. So I had I was going to say an audition. I had an interview with the CEO, and of course he loved me. And so he accepted me. And they have these all hands on deck meetings. So because they like to stay transparent and explain what they're doing as they're getting ready to kind of drop. And this was like almost a year ago, like February, March, I think. And because I have a corporate background, they asked me to help out with the chief experience officer on a couple of projects, which I did. And it was fun. And I was the one who had corporate background, so I knew what I was doing. And after a couple of meetings, there was one meeting where I don't know what happened. The chief experience officer, I don't know if he was on drugs. I don't know if he was drinking. I don't know what it was. But he was, let's just say, not himself, and started berating the way the CEO ran meetings in front of all the coaches.
Not very good psychological safety.
Not at all. And I mean, what are you thinking? It's, like, read the room. And I was texting him, stop it. Shush, shut up, close your mouth. I don't know any other synonyms. I'm working on it, and until I finally had to say out loud, you need to stop. And that kind of, I may be paraphrasing, and he finally did. He was, of course, fired after that. And the CEO came to me afterwards and asked me, would you like the position? And I said, okay. So so as chief experience officer, it's not HR. I'm kind of a rover. I make sure that all the experiences people have from the client side to the coaching side run smoothly. Everyone's happy. Everyone gets what they need. And with startups, everyone wears different hats, what you need to. And I'm a fractional. I'm certainly not full-time because I have a piece of the action and no one's getting money at this point because we are working from the CEO is the official owner. So it's his ball, his game.
Right.
So I'm working with them anywhere between 5 and 15 hours a week, making sure that everything is copacetic, and we're getting really close. I am able to work with a couple of B2B organizations, so I could be, because I do B2B, I know how to set it up. And, so we have a couple of companies that we are talking to work with them for their people to get coaching. So it's a
That's
new
cool.
experience. And I actually forgot what a good high level executive I am, because it's been a lot of years since, I worked as a VP of sales for a Midwest cable rep firm for a few years.
Ooh.
So it's like, I know what it's like to do that sort of thing. And it came back pretty quick. So yeah. And it's,
That's fun.
and it's super fun. We're different than a lot of them because we are keeping it a little bit more edgy and not so, corporate and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I see a lot of like leadership coaching and executive coaching, and I've never had the like supervisor manager title, although I feel like I've been a leader in, my workplace when I've worked on my teams. And I was like, why do they get all the coaching? Like, where's the coaching for everyone? Like, we can all be leaders in our organizations, regardless of our titles.
Exactly. And that is part of communication. So that's what I do, because people need to communicate well, no matter where they are in the organization, especially if they want to move up. It's how you speak to leadership. It's how you speak to your colleagues. It's how you speak to people who may be employees beneath your level and you want to make everyone you speak to feel smart.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that? Basically,
Yeah.
and to bring out their best selves. They're not going to know why they like you, and they will.
Good point. What else is on your journey, on your horizon? You've got Dancing Dragons, Coaching Collective you're
I'm
working with.
looking
What
to I'm
else?
doing more things in Europe. I was there
Ooh,
in March working with HR Vision, which is a global organization that focuses on the future of work and how HR can spearhead that. And so I did a workshop and I emceed one of their lines of concurrent workshops. So I emceed the L&D one. And actually, I'm going to be working with
nice.
them again in New York in January. And I have a European partner. His name is Aaron Windrum. And he is an expert he's also not also, he's an HR consultant who specializes in AI. And
Ooh,
we're writing a half-day program that we're calling Wabi Sabi, we haven't finalized, but the premise is about Wabi Sabi, which is the Japanese concept of the beauty that comes from imperfection. So
oh,
so a wabi sabi vase is they will show a broken vase that is fixed using gold, and it makes it more beautiful. Imperfection is beautiful. AI is imperfect at this point. So is play. So
mm,
is improv. So we are putting together and making the point that you can't be too rigid. You have to be able to play, be in the moment, especially when you're using new technology, featuring failure. How else can we do this? And all that type of stuff. So it's needless to say, it's going to be pretty fun.
you are very busy.
I
You've
am.
got
I am.
you.
But
You're always in a different
there's
place.
there's always room for new clients.
Yes, and right. You're
Right.
always traveling. You were in Philly last week. You're doing things in Europe and New York.
Yeah.
You're all over the place. I love it.
Yeah, it's fun. I like traveling, and because of my ex-husband is a contemporary jazz recording artist, and I used to travel with him. So I know people in virtually every state and all over the world. It makes it so much fun for me to travel. And I love meeting
Yes.
new people. So that makes it fun.
Yeah. Rona, you've already kind of answered this, but I asked this to all the guests, pretty much all the guests who've come on. Yes and mindset or growth mindset, or another term for growth mindset.
Yeah.
How do you embody a yes and or growth mindset in your life?
Oh, asking questions. Questions are the
Yeah.
key to everything. We may have a target for something, and we may have a conversation, or we want to learn something. That target may change because we are asking questions. Where
Hmm.
the more information we have, the more where we're going may turn left. We don't know that unless we ask. So it's curiosity, basically. And it's accepting what is and adding to it. And the only way a lot of times we can add to it is by finding out more.
Mhm.
So that's the way I look at it.
I love that. Yeah, being curious, which for our improvisers listening, we're taught in improv scenes, like, say yes and without asking too many questions. Of course, sometimes you ask questions, but
Right.
I think in life, curiosity can take many forms, right? So it could be asking questions or just like being curious to know more. Like, tell me more about that. Like, expand on that,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. And improv has its system.
Yes.
As improv is, there is all, there's Jeffrey tells me this all the time. There's a system for everything. And he's right. There's even a system for improv. So I am
You're right.
taking the tenets of improv and just using them. I'm improving with the improv tenets. Yeah. So it's using them just a little bit differently for something that is important to me. I think everyone should do that because everyone's different. Everyone looks at the world different. And, that's an important thing to remember. Not everyone thinks like you. And the
What?
more,
Are
I
you
know,
serious? Wait, really?
frightening, isn't it? And when we realize that, that's when we can get curious. How do you see the world? How do you see this? Which allows us to bring that childlike mindset in because we're finding out information. We're not judging. We're not assuming. We are curious. It makes life an adventure.
Coming at it from a place of like, ooh, tell me more. Like, I'm curious to know more instead of being that like expert or trying to play the expert all the time. I understand in our jobs and roles, sometimes we are the expert and sometimes we're not. But I think some leaders especially like feel the need to be the know-it-all in the room all the time. And it's like you don't have to be the know-it-all. You
Right.
don't have to have all the answers. You can ask questions.
Exactly. And that's what you just described is hero leadership. And that's based
Mhm.
on fear. When people are in a state of fear, they grasp for control, my way or the
Mhm.
highway. And people who have more, and their ego gets in the way. When you can get rid of your ego, that's when that childlike mind comes out to play.
Mhm. And you'll actually listen and hear what people are saying
Yeah.
too, and can
Yeah,
take action that way instead of thinking you need to come up with all the solutions.
exactly. I think great leaders have smarter, better people around them because
Mm.
it makes them look better. How smart are they having all those people with them? And they know because managers herd cats and let their people, do that. That's what I used to do when I was a manager selling, advertising. I had great salespeople around me. Oh, what happens
Mhm.
if we do that? What a great idea. Do it. And then I
Mhm.
look good. Go ahead, make me look good.
Exactly, right? Improv is all about making your scene partner look good because
Exactly.
in the process, your scene partner looks good and you look good and the whole team looks good,
Right.
in the end result. So, I love this. Rona, we could talk about improv
And
and
burger.
life and leadership forever. Right. I know. But I love having this conversation with you. And I know our listeners are loving it too. And just like, how can we find out more? So, where and how can we find out more about you on the interwebs?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn at just Rona Lewis. I realized I just put my name Rona because it's like just Jack Rona. And I'm
Perfect.
at ronalewis.com and playfulmindproject.com. It's just Rona at playfulmindproject.com. Where else? I'm on Instagram at Rona Says. I think that's it. Facebook, Rona Lewis 11.
And then Biz Souls
Oh, right.
podcast is
The podcast. I
everywhere.
almost forgot. Sorry, Jeffrey. Yeah, it's BIZ-SOULS. We are on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. Wherever your podcasts are sold. So, yeah. Not that you have to buy it. It's free.
Well, I'm so impressed. You have 187 episodes. I think this episode right here, at the time of recording, will be around the 51st episode. And just
Yay.
like reaching 50 is like such a
That is
milestone. So
that
I'm
is
like
huge.
187.
I know. Well,
Yeah.
Jeffrey made me. He makes me
Jeffrey
do
made.
them.
Well, you all have fun. I've listened to a few episodes.
We
You
do
all
have
just
fun.
have a good time doing them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's a great straight man and he does have a good sense of humor when he's not. He does all the tech stuff and he edits it. So he's so busy like playing with the motherboard and we have cameras in back of the Zoom when we interview. There's a lot going on. So I give him grace with that because I'm like, I gave you like a softball. And he's like, oh, I was working this. And I'm like, oh. So we have fun.
Oh man. It is. It's fun. Rona, I can't wait to see where your journey, expands upon and where it leads to. That's so much fun. I know you'll have fun and play in the process. I also, after this, I'm going to go on Amazon and order your book too,
Yay.
because I need that in my library. I love
Absolutely.
anything
Absolutely.
play and improv based. It's like I need that in my library.
Absolutely. And then we will have you on our podcast, of course.
Would love that. Yeah, I love a good pod swap.
Yeah.
Rona, so lovely chatting with you. I miss Southern California, but today's a rainy day that we're recording. For you,
It is.
it's rainy.
It just
So
stopped. I can see a little blue, but it was pouring this morning, pouring.
which Southern Californians do not do well with rain.
They
So,
do not know how to drive in the rain, so I'm staying home. Yeah.
yep, but it's probably a good decision. So lovely chatting and big hugs. And I can't wait till our paths cross again.
Me too.
And this has been so much fun.
Thank you. Bye, all.
And big hugs to you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode with Rona Lewis. What a gem. She's so much fun. I think I smiled the whole way through, just laughing and cutting up. And I love all the little jokes she has and just the playful energy. To be transparent, I've been feeling a little down lately, and just chatting with Rona always seems to light me up and makes me feel a little bit brighter. And so I'm so happy we finally made this happen. It really has been almost 2 years in the making, which is crazy that 2 years has flown this fast, but it has. But perfect timing. Her book came out earlier this year, so I'm so glad we got to chat about it. I really love the title, Play and Profit, and just how play can help with organizational success and profits and just making your culture and team a little bit better, a little brighter, and lead to innovation and creativity, more productivity, which is crazy because you think that play would take away from the time working on tasks. But in all reality, taking a little play break or, some time to be creative, you can call it whatever you want. And apparently there are lots of terms. I didn't realize there were so many terms for play, and I have to do my research. But that's amazing that there are so many different types of play. But taking a break, and I think we inherently can understand this, that taking a break from work actually leads to more productivity at work because we're not so focused, because we're not so into all the deadlines and the tasks, and we lose sight of the bigger picture sometimes when we get absorbed into the little things. And so taking a break allows us to step back from those little things, see the bigger picture, see the road ahead and where it's leading. We can have discussions on our growth and like where we want this to lead, our long-term plans. And I think that's what play and taking a creative break allows us to do. Because sometimes, and I'm speaking from experience, you get so into the emails and deadlines and tasks. And then someone asks you, like, what do you think about this? Doing a 3-year plan or this for the future. And you're like, I don't know. I can't think about that right now. I don't have the brain capacity. And so a play break gives you that capacity. That was a really long-winded way of saying that play is so helpful. It's helpful at work, it's helpful in our lives. I like to think that I bring a playful energy in most things that I do, and I understand, we show up how we show up sometimes, and, life happens, and you don't have to you don't have to have this toxic positivity, which I know Rona used in the beginning. And I think that play and having that playful mindset can be misconstrued as a toxic positivity, having this Pollyanna view of the world, which that might be an older reference. I don't know. There's this movie, Pollyanna, and I haven't seen it since I was little. And I'm going to go on a little tangent here, but the movie Pollyanna reminds me of my grandma T, because when I was little, I would stay at her apartment and she didn't have cable. And I always hated staying at Grandma T's house because she didn't have cable. And sometimes we would go to the library to get movies. So that way I had something to watch besides PBS, like Barney and Arthur and stuff. And I was too old for those shows. We did watch a lot of Judge Judy, and I liked Judge Judy at the time. But anyway, I feel like we watched Pollyanna, like we had to. How else or why else would I have watched Pollyanna as this like 5 to 8-year-old in the 90s? I don't know. So anyway, whenever I say Pollyanna view of the world, it just reminds me of Pollyanna, and it reminds me of the movie, and it reminds me of Grandma T. A to C thinking right there, and you got the whole journey of it all. What a tangent that was. But again, playful energy, it's not just being like, everything's great and it's sunshine and rainbows all the time. No, no, no. It's not that. It's kind of saying yes and. Yes to the situation we're in, the reality we're in, and accepting it and adding to it. And I think that brings out a playful energy in all of us. And I love it. I think the world is a little bit brighter when you can have that playful filter on and just be more curious too. I like the different words that Rona used, the different terms. Hobbies are play and keeping that curiosity, asking questions. I really like the idea of just like, tell me more about that. Right now, I'm kind of like expanding my hands or, like, tell me more, tell me more. I want to know more. And I think that is such a great way to live life and be like, tell me more about that. What was it like to do that? What are you thinking? What's going to happen next? Expand upon it because I think so many times we kind of ask people these questions and they answer. And what I've learned from a conference session actually recently, that the more you listen to people and really let them talk, and then just ask questions, you know, kind of tell me more about that, they'll go deeper and deeper. So you kind of get the surface level at first, and then you say, tell me more about that. And you get a deeper answer. And then tell me more about that. You get kind of the actual answer that they've wanted to tell you, but on the surface, they either couldn't formulate the answer or they didn't feel like they could. And then, but you asked and you were interested and you were curious. And so that brought about the deeper level response. And so I love having that curiosity mindset too. Tell me more. I want to know more. I'm interested. I'm excited about this. I really love discovery. That's my word. That's kind of my just ever going mantra of like discovery. How can we explore and discover what comes up? I always like to tell Evie when we have to go to the grocery or something kind of mundane, I'm like, "Evie, we're going on an adventure. Let's go on an adventure. Let's have some fun." And to her, like the grocery store is an adventure because she now sits in the cart and she'll like wave to people, everyone she passes. And at Publix now, you can tell I'm in the Southeast at Publix. She gets a snack, she gets a banana from the kids' cart, and she likes to eat her snacks. Going on some big tangents here. But again, just that's what play does to you. It kind of lights you up. It's like, oh, yeah, like these cool things are happening. That's great. I really loved what Rona said about find your playground, find what lights you up. And when she said that, I was starting to think about my daughter, Evie. And we just went to this park yesterday that had these three different playgrounds and they were set up for different ages. And I'm sure a lot of parks are designed that way, but some are not. You would be surprised, actually. And they had one park that was like 6 months to 23 months. And then they had a 2 to 5-year-old playground. And then they had a 5 to 12-year-old playground. And I loved that they had these options because I have taken her to some playgrounds that have these giant slides. And I'm like, oh, that's a little high for you, baby. And my adult brain kicks in because it has to, safety wise. Like, that's a little too high for us. But the 6 to 23-month-old playground was perfect for her. But anyway, the Find Your Playground reminded me of this park with the three different options because I think we have multiple different playgrounds. Like we can have multiple hobbies that light us up and that we visit the different playgrounds over time, right? So we might be really into this one hobby right now, but we have these other side hobbies, but then we get really into this hobby and then, we have some other side hobbies. So I love the idea of find your playground and find the one that's lighting you up right now, the hobby that's like really kind of speaking to you. And I will say, I feel like in Western culture or society, sometimes there's the temptation to monetize hobbies. You get really into this thing and people are like, "Oh, you should sell that or you should make a business out of that." And for some people that works. That's kind of how I've gotten into this. So I get it, but you don't have to monetize a hobby. You can have a hobby for the sake of enjoyment. You can just do something for the love of it. And so, like, go to that playground that, like, has the swings and the slides, and you're like, "Oh, I really like this one right now. This is really lighting me up. I wanna keep doing this." And then, like we were saying, like we were doing golf for a while and now we're not. But then you get invited to go to golf and you're like, "Oh, I kind of like doing golf." And so you get into the golf playground. So there can be multiple playgrounds, but find your playground. Find the one that's calling to you. I think that's really neat. And I love that phrasing. And I'm so inspired to just keep this playful mindset, this playful energy, and let it carry me through. 'Cause like I said, I was down for a few days, just feeling kind of down. Lots going on. My clothes don't fit still. And I know I'm 14 months postpartum and maybe I'm having too high expectations. But anyway, I won't get into too much of the down part. But just, you get into your feels and that is perfectly fine to do so. I think the hobbies are what can bring you out of it or at least remind you that life is full of fun. And so we have a choice of how we show up in this world. We can show up and kind of have our arms crossed and folded and be like, I don't want to do this forced fun, or I'm not into this. I'm an adult. I don't want to play. Like, I have lots of serious things to do. And that is certainly the case. And no one would fault you for that. Yeah, we all have bills. We've got to support our families, ourselves, the world, like with taxes and the environment. I mean, there's so much. On the flip side, we could show up with our arms open, ready to receive, ready to be curious and ask questions, and ready to explore and discover. And it's up to you how you want to show up in the world. And listen, we show up in different ways and with different things going on, and that's totally fine. But the more that we're open to receive and explore and discover, the more adventures that can come up. So I'm curious to hear from you with the find your playground tip. What's your playground that you're currently, exploring and discovering on? What's your hobby, your passion that you're doing? Maybe it's improv, maybe it's acting, maybe it's public speaking, right? Finding the fun in public speaking. I'm all about that. Whatever it is, I'd love to hear. What's your playground? Reach out to Rona and me and let us know. Let us know if anything else resonated for you. I would love to hear from you. As a reminder, you can reach out to me on social media. I'm on Instagram at Improvly Speaking. On LinkedIn, I'm at Dayna Gowan, and my website is improvryspeaking.com. Also, if you are watching the YouTube video, I have started recording videos of my outros because why not? I don't know why I didn't before, but I think it's fun to record the outros now and have video. That way you don't have a blank space for this outro part. If you are watching the recording, the video, I've got a nice big table desk behind me and I'm super excited to use it. I'm excited to be able to stand and do virtual presentations, maybe stand and do these outros. Kind of a cool thing behind me that I just wanted to call attention to. We'll probably cut this. But if it stays in, that means it's really interesting, and I wanted you to know about it. Anyway, thanks so much for being playful with Rona and me today, for having fun and just showing up and being yourself. We love that you're here. We love that you're listening. So thank you for listening and supporting Improvly Speaking. Here's your friendly reminder to say yes and go out and flex your creative thinking. I'll talk to you next time.